Okay, people out there, this is the Midnight Skeptic, and here we go with my play-in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is the Midnight Skeptic show number 110. And this is Monday. It's about 4:45, the 27th of February. Yeah, this month's proceeding apace. Oh, it's good to be woke. It's good to be woke. It's good to be woke in the morning. Yes, the Midnight Skeptic is, as always, proudly woke. And my t-shirts to that effect are still in the process of being made up. Don't panic, fans of the Midnight Skeptic. I will have them ready for whoever wants them. Okay. And if this show, me, pisses off MAGA heads, well, so much the better. All right. And I have. Okay. I'm doing my small thing, this show, in an effort to, quote, rid this country of all GOP MAGA head Republicans, one broadcast at a time. Okay. Send all hate mail, death threats, and, dare I ask, helpful suggestions to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. I'll get it and I'll treat them appropriately. Okay. Real quick on the shout outs. Okay. International YouTubers and KPCA.FM worldwiders via Anchor and Spotify. Hello, Australia, New Zealand, the European Union, and Russia. There's still one guy. And Canada. I think there's 3 up there. Okay. John Crowley at Aquas, Tom Gaffey at the Phoenix. Nariman. Keith and Cody, Tom and Nancy, Kevin and Lori, Rich and Nancy, Dennis and Megan in Tiburon, that rich enclave. San Francisco, Yvonne Santos, Pacifica, Stan and Kathy, and Susan the Progressive Miller. Down in L.A., Jackie and Wayne. Wayne, I hope you're not in too much pain. You're going through a lot, I know, but you've got a support group down there. And their daughters, Samantha and Melanie, Arizona, Bran and Mina, and Andrea, their daughter, who's a nurse. Take care of yourself, Andrea. She's my niece, plus her husband, Tim, plus the 3 little guys. Karina Hilliard, the snake lady, down in Patagonia. Arkansas, Shannon Reed, Florida, Amelia and Nelson and Alice. North Carolina in the Raleigh-Durham area. Dr. Dave Rubin, the best lung doctor in the world. Probably the universe. Okay. In Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger, the Sonora crowd, Robert and Colleen Finnegan, Robert and Sandy Fisher, and Brad and Martha, their kids. Martha, who's a nurse, Take care of yourself. Wear your PPE. Darrell, Judy, Leonidas, Kathy Francis, Lynn Quayle, John Gleason, and his two daughters, wherever they are, Tiffany and Jennifer. I will certainly send them T-shirts if they want them. They listen in very occasionally. Okay, down in Mexico, wow, Rosie Lopez Negrete. Oh, locally, I keep forgetting Tim Conrad, ex-Sonoraite, very, very good photographer, extraordinaire. And then in Sacramento area, Dave and Rosie Takach and Mickey Huff, who has to commute down to Diablo Valley College, where he's a history and social sciences professor, and the head of Project Censored. And go to projectcensored.org and order your State of the Free Press 2023. All right. If you phone in, or not phone in, but if you go online to Project Censored, you might get one of their signed books, autographed books. It'll be a collector's item someday. Okay. Whew. I'm going to start the show off with good news, as I've promised. There were a couple of shows where I neglected to do that, or start off the show with really good news. Okay. But here it goes. The University of Queensland in Australia, University of Queensland, researchers have found that children will naturally help people in distress. It's called a compassion response. And they say that children naturally have this compassion response in themselves if there's no real personal cost to them. Okay, this study was published in the Royal Society Open Science Journal. Okay, if this compassion response hangs with children until they become adults, well, you can forget about them ever registering as a Republican. Okay, that's my snarky take on that bit. Okay, bad news. Vicky Baggett, Bagget, she's a high school English teacher in Florida at Northview High School in Escambia County. She has submitted 148 of the 150 book challenges, including And Tango Makes Three. The reason? She claims they're indoctrinating. Now, where could she have heard a word like that if not for MAGA head, far-right, radical hate mongers? Okay, and she's a member of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. Okay, if my listeners out there haven't heard of this book, And Tango Makes Three, it's based on a real story from the New York City Zoo. And there was an egg, a penguin egg, that was kind of adopted by these two male penguins. Oh, the horror, the horror. And it hatched, and they adopted the little penguin chick. We can't have that. We need MAGA heads to check the gender of every animal in the zoo to make sure that two males aren't cohabiting in sin. Okay. That's my snarky imitation of a Republican MAGA head. All right, I got to get that out of my system. Okay, bad news again. Women's privacy news. Virginia Senate Bill 852 by Barbara Favola, capital Favola, a Democrat from the 31st District, would prohibit law enforcement from accepting personal menstrual cycle data with search warrants. It would prohibit that. However, Governor Glenn Menstrual Youngkin, the governor, is against this bill. He wants law enforcement to keep a record of all women's menstrual cycles so the state of Virginia can try to be informed if any Virginia women might have an abortion, medically or pill-wise, whatever. Did I say that I'm not a real Republican? Okay, where am I? It's prompted by anti-abortion laws in Virginia that criminalize women. Okay, this is a bit of related good news. The Virginia Attorney General has stated publicly that he will not prosecute women that have been outed as having mifepristone type pill abortions at all. That's what this whole foo-foo thing in Virginia is about. Glenn Youngkin, the more that I read about this creep, the more of a MAGA head he becomes in my mind. My mind, such as it is. Okay. All right. Now, I've got a whole bunch of stuff about the huge train derailment in East Palatine, Ohio. The orange sociopathic bloat bag visited East Palestine, Ohio, in his MAGA hat with his sycophants and toadies with him to bring happiness to the citizens suffering from the February 3rd, which is Friday, Norfolk Western derailment that spilled gallons and tons of materials of dangerous chemicals. Okay. And what did Trump bring with him to help the citizens of East Palatine? His Trump-branded water bottles. He's probably stopped himself from tossing the bottles out to the crowd like he did down in Puerto Rico with those paper towels. What an evil jerk. Okay, Trump actually used the visit to, of course, point fingers at the Biden administration. He made no helpful suggestions, and he brought bottles of his Trump-branded Trump spring water. It was discontinued as a business of his in 2010. Were these bottles of waters the leftovers from another failed orange sociopathic bloat bag business? I'm just asking. Okay. My notes get jumbled up once in a while. Okay. Okay. There's a company, an environmental and infrastructure inspection company called AECOM. That was brought in by Norfolk Western to check things out. It's an American firm based in Dallas, Texas. American multinational infrastructure, and they're a consulting business. That's on their website. That's what they list themselves as. They began originally in 1910 as a Swiss drilling company, and eventually, oh boy, Ashland. They began eventually as Ashland Oil and Refining Company in Kentucky. A Dallas-based consulting firm contracted by Norfolk Southern. The very first testing of the water and the air was done by the state of Ohio, EPA. Anne, A-N-N-E, M. Vogel, capital V-O-G-E-L. She was appointed by Republican Governor Mike DeWine in December of 2022. Well, she's only been on the job for like 2 months, less than 2 months. She's 28, and Mike DeWine appoints Anne Vogel. She was formerly DeWine's, get this, policy director, a strictly political appointment, and no scientific background, no engineering background. She spent 10 years at the American Electric Power Company, dealing with regulatory matters. She has a law degree from Capital University and an MBA from Ohio State. And when I tried to Google her, Anne Vogel, all of the Google sites led me to, this site does not exist. Well, I kept at it and found through back channel ways this information that I am giving to you. Very suspicious. Okay. And that's what Republicans do. They just make political appointments. They are essentially an anti-science political party. Okay. Okay, I talked a little bit about railroads on the last show, but this is going to be quite a bit more. Railroads, as I said last week, should be, you ready for this, nationalized. Yes, that'll send MAGA head Republicans screaming, he's a socialist. Yes, I am. I'm a socialist to the extent that there are many socialistic programs that we should adopt and have adopted in this country. Social Security is one. The post office is another. Okay, anyway, I don't want to get into that. Okay, they should be nationalized, and I'm backed up in that sentiment by the United Railway Workers, which is an agglomeration of all of the 12 different unions that are associated with our railroads. Okay, I'm off my notes. I got to get back on them. Yes, socialism. Railroads are a utility. Okay, little railroad information in this country. The top 5 Class 1 railroads in the United States are, number 1, surprise, Burlington Northern. Burlington Northern Santa Fe, BNSF. They became that in, I don't remember the year that they merged, but it's not that far back. Okay. In 2018, operating revenue, excuse me, of $23.4 billion. And it's a Warren Buffett company. He bought into it in 2010. And in 2021, like 2 years ago, they were up to 23.3, or actually, they lost a bit of money. They didn't lose, they just didn't grow quite as fast. $23.3 billion. Okay, who's number 2? Union Pacific. Okay, and they were merged with the Southern Pacific. And again, sorry, I didn't write that down. Not important. In 2018, they were up to $22.8 billion. And in 2021, they were $21.8 billion. Okay, I'm going to zip through the rest of this. Canadian National, $13.3 billion in 2018, $11.5 billion in 2021. CSX in the number 4 spot. They began as the B&O Railroad. Any monopoly players out there? That's them. Okay, 2021, $12.3 billion, and 2021, $12.5 billion. They're growing a little bit faster. Okay, and the number 5, Norfolk Southern, the toxic waste spillers, okay, of East Palestine fame or infamy. Okay, they were $11.5 billion in 2018, and almost as much, $11.14 billion in 2021. Okay, consolidations of all these railroads occurred in the 1980s and the 1990s. There really is, there's 2 more Class 1s railroads of note, these huge guys, Kansas City Southern and Canadian Pacific, which started out as the Soo, S-O-O line. Okay. And the Soo line is currently a subsidiary of Canadian Pacific. Okay, that's the idea of these huge multi-billion-dollar conglomerates. Okay. The transportation of hazardous materials by rail. God, my handwriting strikes again. The transportation of hazardous materials by rail is subject to the Federal Railroad Administration, the FRA, which is underneath the Department of Transportation. Okay. And there's another government agency, the Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, the PHMSA, and the Department of Homeland Security. They all have their fingers into rail transportation in this country. The Association of American railroads, and specifically the TCC. Well, what's that? The Tank Car Committee, HFFT, high hazard flammable trains are supposedly regulated by the Tank Car Committee, equals a continuous, okay, this is one of their regulations, a continuous block of 20 or more tank cars of loaded and flammable liquid, or 35 plus tank cars with flammable liquid dispersed throughout a train is prohibited. Okay, Federal Railroad Administration in the Department of Transportation. Okay, the highest profit margin of any industry in the U.S. are the railroads. 51% profit margin. That's way more than any other industry in this country. On the whole, on the average, other industries, mining, retail, coal mining, farming, plastics, shipping, meaning with ships, average out to about 9%. Wow. I mean, that's actually pretty good. But the railroads, 51%. Okay. I still say railroads should be nationalized. Okay. As an addendum, okay, I ran out of space on my notebook here, so I drew a little arrow saying that I should continue over here. All right. There's a this guy, Jeff Kurtz and Mark Burrows of the Railway Workers United. I saw a, I don't think it was YouTube, but it was a news agglomeration interview with them. And, on the Real News Network, RNN. Go to rnn.com and check them out. They're pretty good. Okay, but these two guys were railroad workers and were interviewed. Okay, at East Palatine, 5 tank cars carrying vinyl chloride of the 150 cars overturned and spilled their stuff, along with other cars with other types of hazardous materials, hazmats. The alleged controlled burn has spewed hydrogen chloride and phosgene. That was the product of this burn-off. Phosgene was a poison gas used in World War I. Okay, the Railway Workers United workers have been warning us for years about cost-cutting efforts by investors, not railroad people, but just money bag investors, like Warren Buffett, that staff and worker cutbacks were ways that the railroad executives cut costs. Okay. Stockholders and executive salaries are the beneficiaries for cutbacks on safety. And, okay, this train was 9,300. I was writing down notes right and left trying to keep up with what they were saying, but I think I succeeded for the most part. I've just got to untangle my notes here. Okay. You measure trains by three things. Footage length, 9,300 feet was this one. And it didn't say how many cars actually derailed or how long the train was, but they measure it by weight. This one was 18,000 tons, which is way over what safety requirements would say. And in this country, we have over 1,000 derailments per year. Okay, and let's see. As I was saying before, there's 12 different unions that are involved in the Railway Workers United organization. Okay, as I said on last week's show, there's engineers, there's brakemen, there's conductors, there's yard clerks, which I worked in way before I joined the Navy and then finished up college. I was working for Southern Pacific briefly before I went back to college. And then before I went in the Navy, I worked for the Santa Fe, which is now BNSF, Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Okay. Now, Trip Optimizer is a system for putting different cars together according to the most important thing, of course, which is the profits for the railroad. And if they can squeak it in underneath these regulations, well, so much the better. But they don't always. Okay. The RSAC, which is the Rail Safety Advisory Committee, tries to regulate precision scheduling railroading and trip optimizers. Okay, now I've got to say that the results are not in yet as to what the actual cause of this derailment was. We do know one thing, that one of the ball bearings in the truck, and I don't know which car in the train it happened on, was flaming. Okay, now railroads have what's called oh, shoot. Okay. Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to wing this. The name of the thing is a spark box detector that's put on the inner edge of the rails, and by infrared checkers. Boy, excuse me 1 minute. I'm going to go back to last week's show notes. Oh, damn it. I just want to get the name of this thing right. Oh, boy. Sorry about that. But anyway, you get the idea. There's electronic heat detectors on the inside edge of rails that as the cars go by, if there's a increase in temperature beyond a certain point, like 200 degrees above ambient temperatures, it will electronically alert the engineer, which this train did, for him to slow down drastically and apply the brakes, so that this car that has the defective ball bearing in its truck and is actually on fire can be set aside on a siding rail, and they can reconnect and then be on their way and hopefully repair the car. Okay. There's electronic, damn it. Oh, ECP brakes. Okay. When I was working for the railroad, it was air brakes. These things hadn't been invented yet. Now, when the engineer in the diesel engine applies the air brakes, well, it takes a while, not long, but a while, for the air brakes to all kick in. Okay, first the car that's right behind the diesel engine, and eventually all the air brakes set the brakes for all these cars. Okay, well, the last car to get its air brakes activated, for a while, a couple of seconds, and I don't know how long, it's still, through the weight of it, going forward, okay? And it mashes all the other cars up toward the diesel engine. And quite frequently, there are derailments that causes, okay? And that's why originally we had limitations on weight, speed, the number of cars, the total footage length of railroad trains. They were regulated because of that fact. Okay, well, now we have ECP brakes, electronic. I'm not sure what the C stands for. Electronic controlled brakes. I don't know. Okay, now if the railroads have them, which a lot of them don't, if the engineer pulls the brake lever, all of the cars in a split second set their brakes. So that last heavy car doesn't continue with its momentum, mashing all the other cars up. Okay. Well, this ECP brakes, well, they cost money, and it would be safer. Well, costing money is verboten because the railroads want their profits, and they aren't going to spend money on safety. Okay, there is talk in the Railroad Workers Union of bringing back cabooses. Now, older people, meaning me, know what cabooses are. The younger generation does not. When there were cabooses on trains, there was a back brakeman and the conductor in this caboose. It's a car that has a sleeping rack in it and, food, snacks, and so on, and a pair of binoculars. So that when trains go around a curve, they can look through the windows of the caboose to visually check to see if any ball-bearing trucks are shooting out sparks or flames, heaven forfend, or if the train is making another turn the other way, these guys will get up there and look out the left-hand side of the car and just check for the same thing. And there was also in the diesel engine, the engineer and a fireman. Okay, well, we don't need firemen anymore in reality. Firemen used to be the guys that shoveled coal into the boiler in steam engines. Well, okay, but he, in addition to being a relief engineer or a front brakeman who would look back and visually inspect cars for these same sparks and flames. Okay, they were safety issues. Ideally, the railroads only want these trains to be operated by two guys. The engineer running the train, or I don't know what they're going to call the second guy. They don't need brakemen anymore, although they really do. So they want their costs for salaries to come down, and they don't want to pay paid sick leave, even one day. That's what this threatened railroad strike back in October, November of last year was all about. Well, I understand that they now get one day of paid sick leave. It's, well, they're working them to death. All right. So enough about railroads. New topic, and I got to sip some grape juice here. Bad news. Okay, I'm not going to get through all of this. Okay. Bad news. Cruelty is the whole point of GOP MAGA head Republicans. Tennessee and Mississippi GOP-controlled legislatures sent bills banning gender-affirming care for minors under 18 years of age youth to their MAGA head governors for their signatures. Tennessee House Bill 1, which passed 77 to 16 on Thursday, the 23rd, which prohibits a healthcare provider from performing on a minor or administering to a minor a medical procedure if the performance or administration of the procedure is for the purpose of enabling a minor to identify with or live as a purported identity inconsistent with the minor's sex at birth. Okay, what is a healthcare provider? Does that include a psychologist? Does that include a psychiatrist? Does that include an endocrinologist? Ignorant MAGA heads. Seriously, if there's any conservatives listening to this diatribe, do you trust medical personnel or do you trust politicians? God, I hope the answer is the former. Okay. And, that takes effect as soon as the governor signs it on July 1st of this year. Mississippi House Bill 1125, and this is a quote of the title of this stupid bill, quote, the regulate experimental adolescent procedures. And they called it that so they could get this acronym, REAP, Act. The Regulate Experimental Adolescent Procedures Act. Okay, for persons under 18. Governor Tate Reeves vowed to sign the bill saying, okay, quote from Tate Reeves, sterilizing and castrating children in the name of new gender ideology is wrong. Okay, God. Okay, here we go. Is gender dysphoria a real thing? Yes. Gender identity is thought to likely reflect a complex interplay of biological, environmental, and cultural factors, not to mention DNA factors. I'll get kind of snarky now about this. This is all way too complicated for GOP MAGA heads to understand. Okay, that was not in the definition of gender dysphoria I looked up. That's my snarkiness that I'm adding in here. Okay, the specific causes remain unknown. It's a complicated interplay of all those things that I mentioned. The American Psychiatric Association, the current DSM-5, and for MAGA heads, that's oh God. Now that I've called them out, I can't remember. Man, brain freezes come along at the most inappropriate times. Anyway, the American Psychiatric Association, the current DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the 5th edition. Whew. Good comeback. Okay. Psychiatrists and psychologists use this manual for diagnosing mental conditions. Okay. And the American Psychological Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Medical Association all agree. Okay, now I had to, I ran out of space, so I had to continue this. What do they all agree about? By age 4, I'm holding up 4s in case there's Republicans watching. By age 4, most children have a stable sense of their gender identity. And research substantiates that children who are prepubescent and assert a transgender or gender diverse identity know their gender as clearly and as consistently as their developmentally equivalent peers who identify as cisgender. Okay, cisgender is identifying with your sex at birth. Those are not quite the same thing, but the vast majority of children just identify their gender along with their sex assigned at birth. Okay, I'm off even these supplemental notes. I was explaining cisgender. And they benefit from the same level of social acceptance. And foregoing gender-affirming care if they don't identify with their sex at birth can have tragic health consequences. Republicans don't care. All right, now back to my other notes. One of these years or decades, I'm going to get organized. All right. 1.2% to 2.7% of children and adolescents identify as transgender. This study from 2020 notes rising numbers of youth are self-identifying as transgender. Okay, now I've heard politicians, the last one I heard say this is Governor Cox of Utah on one of my lefty propaganda shows on MSNBC. He said it's a social contagion. The numbers are exploding and things like that. Well, the numbers aren't exploding, and there's two ways to look at this. Is gender dysphoria a condition that is actually medically growing? Or the other possibility is kids are being accepted more and more by their parents, by their friends, and they are less afraid to, quote unquote, come out. There's two reasons why this number should be growing at all. It's not a social contagion. It's a nightmare for MAGA heads, that's for sure. Okay, I'm off my notes again. I'm just riffing and being snarky. Okay, I went into, is it actual gender dysphoria? Or is it easier to report nowadays? I just said that. And it's not a social contagion. I am getting close to where I should play my out music. Okay, bad news. Parents' rights, a MAGA head trope versus students' wishes of privacy. Now, they are in conflict. Now, parents who insist on micromanaging their kids' lives, and if the kids are not comfortable confiding in their parents about, for instance, gender dysphoria that they're expressing, that says a lot about the family dynamics. I hope, and he has, my own son, which didn't really have any huge problems in his life, accepting of anything that he would want to confide in me. I never worried about that. Okay. The Center for American Liberty, and that's a misuse of the word liberty if there ever has one, MAGA head lawyers. They are a far-right radical MAGA head group of lawyers founded by Harmeet Dillon, the queen of the California MAGA heads. Okay, Aurora Regino, the mother, a mother of a 13-year-old daughter who received hormone therapy to, I presume, block her puberty onset. Okay, at 15, she had a double mastectomy at Kaiser. Now, they're from Butte County up in Northern California at the Chico Unified School District. The MAGA head lawyer's statement on her behalf, quote, parents, not schools, have the right and responsibility to make major life decisions on behalf of their minor children. That right is infringed when schools socially transition children. Okay, schools don't do it, kids themselves do it. they're just trying to gin up anger in their MAGA base. Okay, that right is infringed when schools socially transition children, which is not done by schools, from one gender to another without involving their parents. Okay, the girl in question, who's unidentified, she is a minor, in Butte County, decided to detransition at age 17. She changed her mind. Okay, AB, California AB 1266, one of the things this very long bill says, with rare exceptions, schools are required to respect students' wishes for privacy. Okay. And, I would have more sympathy for the mother if she didn't head right for Fox News and the Jesse Waters show to blather on and let this Jesse Waters creep talk to her. Anyway, the interview was on January 14th of this year on Fox News. The 5th grade daughter, and this is a quote from the mother, secretly went and transitioned her kid after seeing a guidance counselor. Okay, the school in question is a Sierra View Elementary. The counselor affirmed her as male just after minutes. Now, guidance counselors out there, especially in grammar schools, if a student comes to you and says, I feel like a boy, you've got to involve other more qualified medical personnel before you just say, do you want a new name? Do you want new pronouns? And in college courses that certify these school guidance counselors, they have got to start educating potential guidance counselors more than they do about gender dysphoria. I am out of time. I've got to play out music. Whew. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, I probably have gotten cut off because it's 58 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay, tried my best. And the YouTube people will still see this, and I'm going to download it tonight. So you can all have the privilege of listening to this rant. Okay, I will do this again. And the next rant will be on March 5th. And I'll record it, I don't know, March 1st or March 2nd, somewhere. Okay, and I will add a few more things about this GOP MAGA head piling on the transgender community, and maybe a little bit more about electronic railroad brakes. I've got to do better about that. Okay?